I'm calling this an extended short because, first of all, the parlor's going through some changes in advance of the new season. Also, is a Boubacar Kamara contract extension worthy of a 20-minute show? I don't really think so, but it also gives me an excuse to dovetail that news with potential tactical tweaks coming up this season, which I'll show you on the big Subbuteo board. And even an extended short is presented by 24/7 Services, family-founded, Birmingham-based, vehemently Villa. Let's talk Boubacar Kamara's contract extension. The Kamara extension has been expected for quite some time, and we know that he's a coveted player within Aston Villa and probably from outside as well. Even Jacob Ramsey and Morgan Rogers said he was one of the manager's pets. He and Pau Torres could do no wrong. But he was also one of our highest earners on $150K per week, or $7.8 million per year. Now, we didn't have a transfer fee. He came on a free, so we're not amortizing a contract over time. But still, you do wonder whether he had leverage, given that we don't have Champions League football, something that he is seeking. He wants to get into the French national team more often. So how much more did we have to pay in a climate where we're trying to actually reduce the squad cost ratio and bring down certain salaries? I've read quotes from within the club that said this could be an historic contract. So while we're trying to bring the wages down, Kamara could be bringing them right back up again, at least at this minute in time. And maybe that's why we signed 19-year-old right-footed center back Modou Kebasisse, who's going to spend this upcoming season with LASK in Austria, and why we are linked heavily with another soon-to-be 19-year-old right-footed center back, JD Camveau, who's at Toulouse. So high potential, higher risk, lower salary. Villa really has nothing to lose. So why is Boubacar Kamara so important to what we do? Well, I think the first thing is that he is exceptional at reading the danger, which plays into the first fundamental principle of defending, and that is delay. Delaying the forward progress of the opponent, especially on counters, which in today's game is where so many of the goals come from, and we know how much Unai Emery hates transitional moments that lead to counterattacks. Without even making a tackle, Kamara can read that danger, delay the progress, and hopefully prevent a counterattack from happening in the first place. The other key attribute that Kamara brings to the table is just his ball progression. Apart from last season, which was hampered somewhat by injury, his career average is still 88% in successful passes. That's high for a player in his position, and in the early years under Steven Gerrard, you'll recall a lot of those were long, sweeping 20 yards or more passes, accurate long balls, which means that he can instigate the counterattack as well as denying the counterattack. Now, where I think he needs significant improvement is in successful dribbles and take-ons. He's low by comparison against other players in his position across Europe's big leagues. But I think we can forgive that somewhat because his other big attribute is defending. The guy wins tackles, 50 of them last year, which puts him in the 89th percentile among fellow players across all of Europe's top 5 leagues. Now, before I talk about shape, I want to reiterate a point I've made on this show previously, which is that most of what you see and read in terms of tactical analysis is absolute bullshit. Anybody, including my missus, can take what happened after the fact in a game and create fantasy tactics around it. Oh, Boubacar Kamara drives the ball, drawing 2 defenders in. We draw a line between them, thus creating space for this player over here. Nonsense. I once had an MLS coach tell me that he is never more embarrassed than when he watches somebody who's never kicked a ball professionally or run a professional training session talk tactics. I got the message. The term tactical masterclass? You cannot account for all the variables in a game that involves 22 players, 1 ball, and 90 minutes, and that includes individual moments of excellence at key times of the game. Tactics are simply objectives within the game. Our team has possession of the ball. These are our objectives. Booba, you have the ball in this area. Here are your objectives. An opponent has the ball in this region of the field. These are our objectives. And the great managers, the elite ones like Unai Emery, simplify those objectives and are also able to replicate the scenarios in training. Now, Unai and his video analysis team will every week prior to a game gather clips to try to understand what the opponent's objectives might be. Doesn't necessarily turn out that way, but they try to identify the trends that the opponent may bring to the game on the following Saturday. Only the people in that auditorium can know for sure whether the objectives that were intended were then met in order to pull off a tactical masterclass. So when I see in a preseason what looks an awful lot like three at the back, I ask myself, is this about a manager asking players to conform to his ideas? Or is it about conforming the ideas to the players he already has in his squad? Like, Pau Torres is so consistently defined as a defender. If you look at his heat map, even going back to the Villarreal days, it's very clear where he operates as a left center back, sometimes drifting all the way out to a left back and operating in these spaces here. Tyrone Mings is a central defender. He is our aerial duelist, shot blocker, organizer, leader. Even Ezri Konsa tends to function in the right half space. But he's been employed as a right back as well because he's so fast. Defensively, the idea that these three could play together, including the very stingy Konsa-Mings partnership, is as much about trying to be more defensively resolute as it is about putting players in their most comfortable roles. The other key subtleties with a three at the back is how important the wide position is. And here again, we have an Ian Matson who, based on his profile, is perfect because he has the capacity to get up and down and has the pace to cause problems. Luca Dean is not dissimilar, but more likely to cause problems with a cross or a pass than a dribble, which is good because that's variety. On the other side, Matty Cash, despite his criticisms, began his career as a winger. But what he lacks at times is a final product, hence the constant cries for an upgrade. And then the newly extended Boubacar Kamara fits in here nicely as a well-defined six who can help shield the back three, almost making it a four, while winning tackles and then providing the outball. With wingbacks, the rest of the roles are slightly more narrow. But again, with tactics, just one small tweak or adjustment, and all of a sudden that's 4-3-3. And can you see how close this is to a 4-4-2? I mean, 3-5-2 even. It's just a matter of what your objectives are, as I said earlier. And in the case of a three at the back, what the opponents will try to do is switch play into those wide areas on either side of Torres and Ezri Konsa. But we can forgive that because 40-yard sweeping passes are slow and you're able to recover from those. I always prefer continuity and stability in a side, and this extension removes some of that uncertainty that was starting to creep in a little bit over Boubacar Kamara. But he now has to earn this contract. I would love to see the details of that contract, by the way, because under Villa's Spanish leadership, the contracts have been quite generous, and that's partially the price you have to pay for not being one of the cabal. Villa now off to the United States of America, and until the Eintracht Frankfurt game, up the mighty Villa.